This week we are taking one image and one image only, and I'm going to talk you exactly through how I think about composition and everything that I go for when I shoot an intimate scene. The conditions are very flat. I've been very lucky that yesterday and the day before we had a bit of snow, which you've seen in my previous week's vlog, and this week it is the complete opposite. Could not be any more of a contrast in conditions. So what I've decided to do, put the long lens on, pick out a composition that I like, and there's this lovely old oak tree, and I'm pointing up to the sky, and I've picked out a composition inside a composition, if that makes sense. All around me is vast woodland, and I want you to try and eliminate your peripheral vision and just focus on the far distance and pick out something like a tree in this instance. And then once I've got the tree I like the bark. Originally I was drawn to the branches which brought me closer to the tree, and then I was drawn to the bark and the vines and the ivy growing up it, and then I was drawn to a section of ivy. So you can see how my thought process from getting out of the car has led me to this tree and to this composition. And then once I've got the composition, then I'm thinking about how am I going to arrange this ivy in my scene. This little environment that I've created from the car is now in front of my lens, and now I need to figure out how I'm going to arrange this composition in my scene. There's quite a lot going on up there actually. When you start thinking about going intimate, there is quite a lot going on up there, and it's harder than you think to try and make everything in harmony. Now, these scenes are all about shapes and the relationship between the elements in your frame. This sort of a shot in for instance it's more of a network rather than a minimal or like a yin and yang. I've covered the entire frame pretty much with the ivy, and it's like a network of ivy, and that I believe that tells the story well enough. It's like the ivy's taken over the tree, and because we've got them flat conditions at the moment, I haven't got any harsh highlights apart from a little touch of silvery bark, which is creating depth with the image as well. You've got some sort of deep crevices which are going to be dark in shadow, so it's also quite hard to expose even with a flat scene. I'm exposing as far right as I can, but for that bright patch of bark, if I go to my histogram right to the right, then I'm going to blow that patch out. And it's not that much of a high dynamic range scene that I need to bracket. So I'm going to try and get it in one frame. So I'm going to push my histogram as close to that middle without blowing the highlights on that bark. But jump into the camera, I'll put you behind, and we'll talk exactly how I feel this image needs to be composed, just so you get a better understanding. But yeah, that's exactly how I got to this image. I'm not sure if that's what you was expecting to see from what I was just talking about from the ground, but this is what I've been drawn to. I like the contrast of the colours against the bark, and I just like the way that the tree comes from the ivy comes from bottom right, and it sort of snakes like a network, grabbing around the tree, and it's sort of holding on for dear life. And obviously these branches around here, these little green leaves, really help balance the composition. And I like the fact that there's a few little odd ones around on the right hand side, which helps fill in these gaps. And I purposely put a little section of ivy leaves up here, down here, and obviously around here, but mainly on these corners, just to stop the eye drifting around this branch and disappearing out. That kind of, I believe that helps keep the eye inside my frame. And in terms of settings, I'll just turn the focus beacon off. I'm in f16, which is giving me maximum depth of field because I am pointing quite high up into the sky. So this whole section of image is obviously closer to my lens than this top side. So rather than focus stack, in f16 at around 200mm with the 70 to 200 lens, I am getting pretty good sharpness from corner to corner. It's a little bit soft down here. As you can see, this branch does sort of curl away, which is obviously creeping further away from the lens, which is slightly soft. So I may take another image in this instance just on this corner with my base exposure, just so I could blend this corner in possibly if it isn't up to scratch in terms of sharpness. But I'm around 10 seconds ISO 100, and the reason I'm not worried about such a long shutter in this instance because it's very calm. There's not a breath of fresh air, and none of them leaves are moving. And as you can see, if I show you the image, this is the corner that's just slightly soft, but as you can see from the rest of the shot, it is pin sharp right across my frame. Absolutely tack sharp from corner right over here. So f16 is giving me that depth of field that I need. I know that, and by reviewing your images on the back of your camera, you can instantly tell whether your settings that you've chose, your f-stop, your shutter speed, is given the enough depth of field that you need. Also, you can just see the top right hand corner of this image is a slightly lighter than the rest, and the same over here, and that's because the tree is curved obviously, and you're getting a little bit of side light, ambient side light from left and right, which is a very nice addition to the composition. So yeah, I hope that explains my thought process behind this, and I do think some people might think it's a bit strange that I'm in this vast woodland and I have picked out this, which is quite out of the way and obscure, and not every person will notice a shot like this, but it's something that I think if you can practice, it will open up so many new doors to you in your photography. And if you're lucky enough to have a long lens, you can get up a little bit higher and pick out more intimate scenes like this. Now I just wanted to show you another example of the sort of things that I look for when shooting more intimate, when the conditions don't lend themselves to the wider picture. If I just show you this here, I'm just taking myself out of focus. Now you can see, obviously we've got a tree. I was drawn from way over there to this vine, which is obviously going up the tree, which then links onto where I was shooting before. And this is kind of where I started my journey to that other composition. I've seen this vine creeping its way up, and I thought maybe a vertical composition using these little sprouts, we'll call them, just these little tiny little ivy leaves. And I really like the way that this little vine sort of disappears in the shape of it. And again, it's all about shapes, textures, when you're taking shots like this. Like my previous shot, there's a lot going on, but if you organise it in a way it's pleasing to the eye, you forget about all the things that you may have missed, and it helps you concentrate on what you are shooting. But yeah, this is the sort of thing that I get drawn to, which then leads on. So if you can take one thing from this video, it is cut out your peripheral vision when you're walking through the woods. Or some other little tips I use is I will walk around with a longer lens on, a lot longer focal range, so I'm talking telephoto, 50mm upwards. When I was using my little D7200, I used to put nifty 50 on, which is around 85mm on crop, on a full frame, and clip it on your belt, on your bag, so you've got it to hand, so when you are walking around you can pick out something like this on an instant, and straight away you know whether it's worth stopping and getting a camera. And also it will force you to exercise this type of photography. If you've got it in your bag, you're going to think, oh, someone's put my bag off, put my bag down, I've got to change lenses, I can't be bothered, I'll just keep going. And you'll end up getting frustrated because you're trying to find these sort of things, because you're forced down that road because of the conditions. So if you have your bag, your camera on you, ready to go, then I think you're far more likely to ever shoot something like this. As you can see behind me, it is incredibly flat. It's now January 2nd, so it's very dead. Most of the trees are dead. There's lots of browns and greens still, like either growing on the rock, on the trees, or lichen, which you can pick out. But I automatically get drawn unless there's mist to a more intimate shot, like we've just talked about. And it's something that I think that as landscape photographers we should try and broaden our horizon, because the more we experiment with different types of forms of photography within landscape photography or different genres completely, the better it makes us in our own individual fields. So when I come to woods and it's like this, I'm already thinking when I get out of the car, I'm going to go intimate, I'm going to try and pick out something possible, because it's just pretty uninspiring scene. Shortly the sun's going to come up, we've got very blue skies, and we're going to get harsh shadows, which is going to make the wider vista even harder to try and isolate, even with a telephoto lens. Shooting way off in the distance, unless you're on a hillside and you're looking down into the woods, or looking up, to a hillside, you're going to struggle to eliminate them skies. And I do talk a lot about eliminating skies in my woodland, and that is because for me, woodland photography is trying to simplify the chaos. Hence the reason why I go to something like this, because the principles still apply. I'm still trying to simplify intimate scenes, but when I'm shooting wide, I'm still trying to simplify, and just by eliminating that sky will help you do that. And also, I mentioned it before, I've touched on this before, it's if you haven't already, I would really strongly advise you to go and check out Alistair Ben's podcasts and videos, because he talks about the art of landscape photography in such a poetic way. And honestly, I couldn't recommend anyone else highly over Alistair. He talks about there being no box, and really just expressing how you feel at the time, which is heavily influenced by the conditions given to me at that day, that particular time, influences my feeling, which then it gets interpreted in my photography like the intimate scenes. Now, intimate aside, going a little bit wider is still possible in the woods, even with the sun as high as it is now. You can see from this little M50 clip, it's quite a high dynamic range now. The cameras can cope with it, but you are going to struggle. It's going to limit your composition in terms of a wider field of view. But this image, there is an image here possible with, it's not so much lighting up now, but you can see a sapling just there, and that was lit up just like the ground was, which is helping make them little brown leaves pop. So that it is possible to shoot slightly wider than the intimate shot I've just shot, but you have to act quick. Like I just said, this was lighting up that sapling, and now it's not. So there are possibilities, but the sun is very bright, as you can see from my face. So I'm still always going to get drawn to a more intimate scene, but always be on the lookout for little pockets like this, because they are kicking about the woods even in the middle of the day. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you picked up some tips from today's video. It's a philosophy that I follow, and I know many others do. I do believe it works, and when you got conditions like this, using the telephoto lens or just a longer focal range, by looking intimate on the ground, up high, on bark and trees, it will really help open up a lot more doors for you in your photography moving forward. So I hope I haven't been too preachy or talked too much, but yeah, this is my approach to intimate photography. I do apologise for the road noise. I am stood next to, fairly close to a road, quite a busy road, so I do apologise for that. But this was the composition I found. This is a perfect opportunity to illustrate my thoughts behind intimate woodland. So thank you so much for watching. Like, share and subscribe. Even just a thumbs up really helps put my next video up to a broader audience on YouTube. So thank you so much for your support. Yeah, not much else to say other than see you next week. Ciao.